So, this makes sense, I'll explain in a minute. I want to give a love letter today. And it's the sort of love that doesn't take your breath away, that sort of love, you know that love. But it's a love that gives you breath and hope. I'm going to set some context to this love letter, and it goes back to 1996. It's fall, there's a presidential election around the corner, and this guy named Bill Clinton is coming to town. And I was asked to get a bunch of young people to rock the vote and show up when he was there. And so they played that song, Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow, and Bill Clinton comes out, and all I could think about was tomorrow. Like, why are we all organizing around this guy? Look at all these people around me. Shouldn't they become politicians too? Now, at the time I was working at the Greater Seattle Chamber of Commerce, and I was working in a leadership training program. It was 9 months intensive leadership training program. And I thought to myself, wow, how we choose politicians is not about leadership. It's usually about political skills, and then we give them political skills, and then they win, and then they go out. But what if we did it differently? What if we had new types of people in politics? We actually thought about their leadership skills, we trained them to do the political stuff, but we actually got them to love bureaucracy and politics, and the policy and how that works. Could things change? So that year, my friend Dean Nielsen and I started something called the Institute for a Democratic Future. And we're going to fast forward to that. So that was 1997. 1997, also a youngish 40-year-old city council member won in a special election. And he called me and said, hey, Lisa, you're a political entrepreneur, come join my staff. And his name was Peter Steinbrück. And I thought, oh, I want to jump at this. Peter was an architect. He was an urban designer. And his father, Victor Steinbrück, had led 2 really important movements in the city of Seattle. That was to save the Pike Place Market, and that was to save Pioneer Square. Now, for Berliners here, the Pike Place Market is kind of like the Mauer Park. We just had more vegetables and flying salmon. And Tempelhof was a bit like Pioneer Square. And so they were in the battles of this political space. And I thought, I want to work for this guy. But when I look to work for politicians, there's 3 things I look for. 1, are they charismatic? 2, do they have resilience? And 3, are they wonky? Because I don't want charisma without wonk. And if you're not resilient, you're not going to make it. So on the wonkiness, Peter scored like 100 out of 10. I mean, he was incredibly wonky. Resilience, he was a tough guy. He had thick skin, and I'll tell you about that in a second. And the third thing was his charisma. And let me put it this way. He's no Bill Clinton. When you meet him, he might be watching, he's kind of a boring guy, but he's very, very heartfelt. So I said, okay, I'm going to go in. So now what I want to do is actually speak to Peter directly about why I love you and the way that gives me hope and breath. So Peter, there are 2 scenes when I was working with you that really deepened my love, not just for you, but for politicians. The first was, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of our time together, there was a group of folks who were running local business improvement areas. And they had gotten behind you in your election because you knew the zoning codes, like how to change roads, how to change buildings, how to do that. Well, quickly after you won your election, you remember they came in, they marched in very proud. We opened the door, and I remember you were sitting in front of a binder, this very thick binder, going over the codes. And they sat down, and I said, Peter, you won. Now put the laws in place. And Peter said, it's not that fast. I appreciated that you supported me in my election, but there are people that aren't in this room that I need to talk to first, because I'm not just here for you, I'm here for everyone that elected me. They got angry, Peter, if you remember, they stood up and moved out. And then a lady at the very end of this 8 angry mob pointed on my shoulder and said, he's doing the right thing. This, Peter, is one of the reasons I love you, is that you just didn't support the people who elected you, but you also supported the people who weren't in the room, and that took courage. The second was Project Liftoff. At the time we were doing work together, early childhood development had just come in, and we knew that we had to get these little brains into early childhood development, particularly in low-income neighborhoods. And we knew that there weren't going to be 8 angry mobs of women coming in or men and saying, we need better childcare centers. But you said to me, it doesn't matter. Even without constituents, we're gonna make this happen. So we called the bureaucrat ahead of all of the zoning. We sat down, do you remember, with him? And he said, we can make this happen. And Peter said, I trust you. You know the bureaucracy, let's work together. And we passed massive zoning that now is sitting in these neighborhoods, making sure these kids 30 years later have a different shot at life. I love you because you're humble, and because you were geeky, and because you work with bureaucrats. And you aren't the only one I love. There are so many more politicians out there who do that. Now, I was very, very lucky to work with such great politicians. And I wanted to take this experience working in bureaucracy and also working with politicians to do something. So Kula's slide coming up, about 7 years ago, I co-founded something called Apolitical. And we think of the democracy flywheel, right? Where citizens who are the power in our communities, they become the politicians, right? They're not aliens, they become the politicians, they get elected with a mandate, and then they give the mandate to the civil servants who then deliver on democracy. You need all of this stuff to work, and I want to thank Charles and the Creative Bureaucracy Festival for giving us an award a couple years ago for really working on this democracy flywheel with the civil servants. And about a year and a half ago, I went back to that 1997 version of myself, and I work on the politician side. And we say, why can't we have politicians that understand and love bureaucracy, that have the political skills, that also have the leadership skills? And so we have academies around the world where we work with local champions. We have them in Southern Africa, where we teach these bureaucratic skills about agile governance as much as we do about how to give a good speech. We have them in Southern Africa, the Caucasus, Sweden, Portugal, and Paraguay. The director of our Paraguay program just stepped down to run for president of her country because she wants to go in and do good policy. And we have one soon starting in Germany and Austria and in Switzerland. And Sonia Yachtel will stand up and just wave. She has called her program, their program, Love Politics. How do we bring love into the political system? Because if we don't, we will see the trust in democracy go down. Now, you bureaucrats know you can do the best work in the world, but if people see the politicians as the problem, that reflects onto government. So we have to work together. Now, those of you in the room who know me know I love to dance and I love life in general. I just ordered a giant disco ball, or asked for one, for my birthday, and I swim in song lyrics, yeah? I think about Tomorrow and Fleetwood Mac. And the song lyric that when I told Charles I was giving a talk on what if we loved politicians that stuck into my head was, what's love got to do with it? Anyone know who sang that? Anyone? Tina Turner. And I say for all of us here, we would not be here. There are easier things to do in life than be a bureaucrat or be a politician, right? These are hard. We must be driven by love. Yeah? We must be that. That must be why we're here. And so I ask you, if you love a politician, give them a love letter. It's hard. They get death threats, yeah? If you love making policy change, run for office. Local level. And if you love improving people's lives, be a creative bureaucrat. The volatility isn't going away. We're going to need you. So I want to thank you for doing your work with love, and I'm going to cue Tina Turner, and you're welcome to clap and sing along too. Thanks, everybody.